Okay, why don't we come to order? So I'm going to start with an acknowledgement, then maybe we'll go around, and we don't have a camera on the room, but I'll sort of repeat people's names and then just sort of read out who is online. That's the best we can do, I guess. But I'm going to start with an acknowledgement. And actually, I'm going to start with an apology. I've got a cold, which I think I picked up doing astronomy talks for school kids last week. So it's, there you are. And my computer also has a cold. It's at Best Buy getting fixed. So I'm using Cynthia's computer, and so far so good, but I barely gotten the other one working this way, so it may not make any difference. So I'll start with an acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge the territory in which we gather as the ancestral homelands of the Beothuk and the island of Newfoundland as the ancestral homelands of the Mi'kmaq and Beothuk. We would also like to recognize the Inuit of Nunatsiavut and Nunatukavut and the Innu of Nitassinan and their ancestors as the original people of Labrador. We strive for respectful relationships with all these people, all the people of this province, as we search for collective healing and true reconciliation and honor this beautiful land together. And we should think a little bit about that, not just read it out. But so I'm going to go back, and we haven't, when we used to all meet in the same room, we would go around and introduce ourselves. And this is the AGM, so it's probably a good time to do it. We should do it once in a while. So I'm Mike Morrow. I'm the, oh, hang on. Now it's official. So I'm the president of the St. John Center of the RESC. And why don't we start with Rick, and I'll just relay what people say. So everybody introduce themselves. And so Rick Golding, member. Returning Greg Baggs. Okay, Mark Pippy. Randy in the back. Gary Diamond, past president. Chris Stevenson, equipment officer. David Carrick, member. Tim Carrick, member. Lynn George, member. Cynthia Patterson, member. Sue Hart, member. And online we have, I can slide it up here. We've got Bob King. Hi, Bob. We've got Bernard Day out in Central. We've got Jim Johnson, who's the treasurer. Craig Peterman. I hope I'm guessing what the last names are, but that's probably Craig Peterman, the webmaster. John Nugent, member. Yolanta Legowski, a member. John, is that John Peddle?
Yeah, John Peddle.
Okay. Yolanta Legowski, member, and Marcellus Redmond, National Council representative. So thanks everyone for coming. And with that, I'm going to, I don't know what Robert's Rules of Order say, but Glenn probably does. But I'm going to suspend our regular meeting and convene the annual general meeting. And this is the agenda. So I'm going to give a quick report on our activities for the last year. And then we'll get a report from Jim Johnson. Doug Ruschi is our not quite arm's length auditor. So he's not here, but I'll read his report. Randy will do a quick membership review, and then we'll hear from committees. Actually, we probably won't because Doug's not here, and I didn't see if Robert's here. Chris, anyways, we'll say something about committees. And then we have a constitutional amendment, which people should have seen a notice for, and that's basically to change the quorum for the executive meetings from a fixed number to just a percentage of the number of executive members we have on the executive committee. We'll have the election, and then we'll adjourn and finish off the regular meeting. So I'm going to stop sharing this and find my president's report so people can see that. Okay, so and hopefully this bar at the top will disappear in due course. Not quite sure how you make it disappear. Sorry about that. Anyways, we had meetings every month except for July and August. In October, a year ago, we had some member presentations. Chris and I gave some updates on things we talked about before. In November, we had Terry Trico talking about computational astrophysics. In December, we had Anna O'Grady talking about her PhD research, and we're hoping to have her again this December talking about her postdoc research. In January, I talked about the Lucy mission to the Trojan asteroids. And then in February and March, we had Gary and Jim talking about filters for visual and astrophotography. And then Ivan Booth talked about observations in an expanding universe. The idea about why, as you go back, things start to look bigger at some point. And then in May, we had the late Blake Nancaro talking about RASC observing certificates. And then in June, we had student Tashfina Serta talking about some of her work on Cepheids and the origin of NGC 1851. And then last month, we had Randy talking about smart telescopes. And I also did a report on the summer activities. So we had a fairly full schedule of meetings. We had some recognitions. Gary had an asteroid named after him last year. That's pretty good. We had some observing certificates awarded. Jeff Hiscock, Explore the Moon, and Emma Duke, Explore the Universe. And Anna O'Grady successfully defended her PhD thesis in July. That's not an official RASC event, but it's worthy of note. And we had sadly lost a member, Peggy Dixon, over the summer. I mentioned that in the last meeting. There were some other things we did in the fall. The Education and Public Outreach Committee at RAC National was organizing town halls. So the Atlantic Centers presented in November, so we presented there. There was you probably remember, there was some a lot of activity about light pollution because of something going on over in the battery. And one of the things that happened was that we prepared a statement on light trespass and sent it to the mayor and council in January. Chris and Gary judged at the science fair, but I don't think awarded anything this year. Doug Rushi, Cynthia and I went to Terra Nova on May 26th and started the process of agreeing to a new, or coming up with a new partnership agreement that wasn't actually completed until early August. Gary and Marcellus instituted a new astroimaging contest, which is still ongoing, and the deadline is in December. Gary ran some members-only planetarium shows, and we did some RASC calendar sales. We had some public observing events. Most of them I reported on last month. I'll just remind you of them, and then I'll say a little bit about the one we had the end of September, because I didn't report on that last month. So we had International Astronomy Day in May, the Star Party, Butterpot Star Party in July, and the Terra Nova Dark Sky Celebration, or that should actually be Night Sky Celebration in August. And then last month we had the Fall International Astronomy Day. So just to remind you, In May, don't know how to make that go away. Any Zoom experts that know how to make those bars go away at the top? Sometimes they go away and sometimes they don't. So the weather was not, it was cloudy. So we really only did the afternoon event, but there were lots of people there. 356 apparently paid to come in, and there were another 50 or so that just stayed in for the free stuff upstairs. So there were things set up, including the portable planetarium in the celestial room. So that was a pretty successful day, considering that we couldn't see anything. The Butterpot Star Party, Friday evening was clear for a while, 20 to 30 visitors. Saturday afternoon, there were a number of solar scopes. It was light attendance. We saw a guide group there. And then Saturday evening, it was pretty nice, 20 or 30 visitors. I mentioned this last time, there was one very enthusiastic young astronomer with her own telescope that was sort of a highlight for a lot of us. So that's what Friday evening looked like. Saturday afternoon with the guide group. And then in the evening, and one of the highlights was these enormous binoculars. And then in Terra Nova, Friday nights, we went back to the sort of thing we did a few years ago, where there was activity at the or crafts and observing at the activity center on Friday night. It's pretty hectic, about 150 visitors. Solar viewing at the visitor center on the Saturday afternoon, and then observing at Sandy Pond in the evening. And the weather was pretty nice for the whole thing. So here's some of the crafts, some of the observing on Friday night. Saturday afternoon, nice sunny day. There were clouds, but not bad. Lots of people having a look. And then in the evening, we set up, and again, we were able to see lots of stuff. So that turned out pretty well. And then last month, we had a September 22nd at the Geo Center. We had 8 telescopes and very good publicity on CBC and VOCM. And so there were a few hundred attendees. We were lucky it was good weather. And so I think it was a very successful event. Lots of telescopes. You can see it getting dark there. Randy's new Sea Star, which was about 3 hours old when the event started. And so Randy managed to get that shaken out as we were going along. And you can see the lineups there. That's pretty gratifying to see. And people were very patient, waiting to see things. Planets, some deep sky objects, the moon, of course. You can see, unfortunately, there were some lights. Occasionally, there was a kid up one of the lights. We did lots of presentations to outside groups last year. Gary did lots of them. Marcellus and Robert and I did some, and Cynthia was long on some of them. So Cub groups, the Salvation Army group, a couple talks at the library. We did something for Holyrood for the Crystal Carnival, Pathfinders, Sparks, Guides, Cubs, Pensioners Association. Gary took care of a 4-H meeting, which was I'm very grateful for because I couldn't make it. Another event in Holyrood for Squid Fest. Robert, Cynthia, and I went up to Camp Delight in Carbonear. That was the same night as the first night of the Butterpot Star Party. The last couple of weeks, I've done some grade 6 and grade 9 presentations. Gary has been doing lots of planetarium presentations for groups since that started up last spring, I guess, right? And I guess you're almost fully booked. I hear about that from the teachers too. And a night stargazing walk in Greens Harbor. So lots of outreach. Gary did the bulk of the interviews, but One notable one was, and did a great job. But in addition, Jerry Ennis was interviewed about light trespass in January, and that was again prompted, but not directly about what was going on in the battery at the time. So I'll just remind you, one among the services we have is the RASC NL Talk group. You join by letting Randy know, or by writing to info@stjohnsrasc.ca. And it's people can share images, but they can also do a certain amount of mentoring and discussion. There were about 2,500 postings last year and about 300 photos, which I actually went through and counted. So very active. And if you're not signed up for that, I'd encourage you to do that. And Jim Johnson hosted some Google Meets this fall, and that's always fun for the few of us that go on those. So that's my report. Are there any questions about that, or people online? Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing that and go back to the agenda. That didn't work. There we are. Okay. So the next one's the treasurer's report. So Jim, how would you like to do that? Would you like me to bring up your spreadsheet and you can talk to it?
Yes, please.
Okay.
And
so
can everyone hear me?
we can hear you in the room.
Excellent.
And
So
Randy can hear you online. So let me just find your
So I do apologize for not being there in person. For those of you who do not know me, my occupation, I'm an occupational health nurse on the Hibernia platform, and I'm currently at work.
And so okay, so we don't have an auditor. We don't, I think our finances don't really merit, and we aren't required to have a complete audit, but we do have someone that does a review, and that's Doug Grushi. And so this is his report. I'm not going to read it out in detail, but he says he makes the point that he is not independent of the St. John Center. He's currently a member. He says it's not a professional audit, simply review and opinion of the center's financial records. So that's what we ask him for, is a review. So he's looked at basically the BMO records, the check register, the expense receipts, the payment history report, Jim's electronic spreadsheet, and the list of calendar sales. And he comments on the checks. And one of the important things is he keeps track of what the last check is in the book, or the next one to be issued, so that nothing fishy happens with checks. And that they were all done in numerical order. He checks on the deposits and the e-transfers. He has gone through the transaction history and looked at the term investment, and concurred with what we heard from Jim. He points out, and so his conclusion is that the accounting system is detailed and comprehensive. It includes records and receipts for transactions and fairly represents the revenues and expenses that occurred in the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2023. So that's Doug Grushi. So thank you, Doug. And I guess you could ask questions, but I'm not Doug. Yes.
No, I got a question.
Oh, question for Jim.
Go ahead.
Off there or not, I was wondering, was our, it's not incorporation, but our registration at the government, was that paid for this year or missed or?
Can you repeat that, Mike? I can't hear.
He's asking about the cost, for, incorporating us at the government. So Randy's put his hand up.
You only have to pay if you change the office.
Oh, you only have to pay if you change the officers. We haven't changed any officers.
One thing I do want to add though is the good use of electronic money transfers throughout last year, and hopefully that continues. It made my job a lot easier.
Yeah, I think that's a huge improvement over trying to do things with checks and $5 bills and envelopes and stuff like that. Yeah, that's certainly the way to do it. Okay, well, thank you very much, Jim, and thanks to Doug for doing that as well. I'll stop sharing and bring up the next item on the agenda, which is the membership review. So Randy, do you want to, you're just going to talk, you don't need any files, right? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so I will back to that one. Okay, so committee reports. Doug Grushi is the chair of the Light Pollution Abatement Committee, and he's not here. Did you want to say something about it? Okay, so Chris is reporting. Chris and Sue are members.
There's been no activity yet.
Okay, so no activity yet. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't, we would still encourage more people to offer themselves for membership on that committee. There are some things that need to be done in terms of monitoring, for example, things at Terra Nova, seeing how they're doing in fulfilling their obligations with respect to their designation as a dark sky preserve. And there are issues that come up in the city, as we saw last winter. And, so I think that that's an important committee. There was actually just I was listening to an interview on the CBC, The Broadcast, and it was Bill Montevecchi, who's the famous bird biologist, talking about, I guess, the beach in Witless Bay being designated as a preserve, but for the sake of the puffins. And there's going to be some control of light there. But he was basically talking about what we talk about. So there are issues that come up, and it'd be good if we have people that can comment on that and research them. So I'd encourage you, if you are interested, I think when Doug gets back, he'll probably have some meetings. And okay, maybe one online meeting. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. The other committee is the Observatory Committee. And is there anything to report?
Hopeful to gain some, at least perhaps one new member of our committee, and see if we can maybe make some changes in the coming RSC year.
Okay, thank you. And so I would encourage people, if you want to get committee membership, is a nice sort of intermediate way to get involved in the business of the center. If you're not and it'd be great if you were interested in also being involved in the executive. But if you want to just sort of get involved and find out how things are working, that's one way to get started at that. So Doug Grushi or Robert or Chris, I guess, you could talk to them about, and I think it's fairly easy to add people to committees. So I'd encourage you to think about that. And you notice that it says on there the need for new members, and that's what I just sort of addressed. There is a need to sort of keep the membership up in these committees so that they can become more active. So the next step is the constitutional amendment. So Randy, how do we manage that? Do you want to speak to that?
So this is a really simple change. The last time we wrote the Constitution, unfortunately, we put in a fixed number for the quorum for executive meetings. And since then, we have vacant positions and these sorts of things. We've even doubled up on a position. So it's getting tough to get 6 members to be there at the same time. So,
Well, we always do, but
yeah, well, you know, some people, anywho, oh, I see there's a mark there. Anywho, it's a very simple change. As you can see the yellow. All we're doing is changing the fixed number of voting members from 6 to 50%. That at least allows us to continue with our meeting. Doesn't affect anything else other than the executive council meeting. So Mike is going to start the poll online. And it's just a simple yes or no. And
launch constitution change vote. Okay, so for people online, we're going to launch the vote, and people here can. Oh,
I'll just call for a vote. All in favor, raise your hand.
Aye.
Rick,
okay, and
all opposed?
okay, so far we got 1 of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 of 5. So we'll give it another couple of seconds, another 10 seconds, 6.
That's a quorum anyway. So.
Yeah.
So we have an overwhelming majority.
Okay, so that change is passed. Thank you very much.
I'll just introduce it in saying that it's always tough to get executive members. People really don't know what we do. It's there in the Constitution. You want to see what the roles are. In addition to this meeting, we have one council meeting on a Wednesday night, first Wednesday of the month. We meet for an hour or so. And basically what we do is we plan these things, take care of any administrativia that we have to, decide what we're going to do for sessions, planning sessions, meeting sessions, etc. We are short in function on some things. We don't really have a PR person as such. So when we get requests and stuff, we don't know how sometimes to address those. But we are open. These are the mandated positions by the Constitution. We don't have to elect past president, of course, it's automatic. But in years past, we haven't filled the librarian position. We doubled up on a couple there too. So I just invite people to have any interest at all in seeing how the executive works. You can either attend one of our council meetings or join. We can appoint people at any time. We used to hope that committee people would be the next tier up. But for any young people, you know, it's great on your resume to say you're on the board like that too. Right? So I'll leave it to Dr. George to.
I believe you've left me nothing to say except to ask if there's any questions. Invitation was sent out and some things from there.
I do all the legwork, try and get a slate. A slate solves us having to say, who wants to be president? No. Stuff. It could be 2 hours some nights. You could speak to the positions and stuff. So I've arm wrestled most people into status quo this year. But Constitution allows nominations from the floor or online. If they're not accepted, we have a vote.
So at this point, I'll ask if there's any further nominations for any position. If there's any further nominations for any of the positions that are currently showing on screen and hopefully online. Second time. Last chance. In that case, I will entertain a motion to accept this slate as presented and to elect the full group on board. So we're prepared to move that.
I'll move it.
So Rick and Mark.
Okay, and I think I've launched the. Have I launched the the poll?
Still says Constitution vote, change vote on mine. Where I've already voted.
They should have. Oh, that's back to the Constitution one, but let me try this again.
Yeah.
Oh,
The old poll may still be active.
oh, okay, there we are, there.
Yep.
There we go, okay. So that's it. Do we have to have a vote to adjourn the AGM or? Okay, all in favor? Okay, we don't have to do that online, so that part is done. Thank you very much, everybody. And okay, and I guess the next thing I'd like to do is a vote of thanks to the other members of the executive for their work during the year, and thank you very much. And
report it back to the president, who's does a lot of work.
thank you. Yeah, I whatever, I'm not gonna comment. Okay, so a few announcements. One that's not here is on Friday, we're gonna be doing something at Beaconsfield. We've probably got enough telescopes. It'll be 7 o'clock, but if you want to participate, let Robert know. And Friday, I'm seeing conflicting reports on what the weather's gonna be. So you're gonna announce somehow whether it's a go or no go. How are we gonna do that? So on the talk list, watch for an announcement whether that's a go or no go. And we were planning, we are still planning, I guess, for Sunday night at the Geo Center, but the weather really doesn't look good for that, right? So, but again, why don't you do a go, no go on that? Well, that's for Beaconsfield. What about for Sunday night?
Sunday. Probably the same, yes.
Okay. We haven't really publicized that one. And
It's not.
yeah, if it's not looking good, maybe. Okay, so we'll leave that in Robert's hands. Okay, so our next meeting is November 15th. It's gonna be a members meeting. People give short presentations on something they're interested in. A few people have commented on things, but or suggested they might be doing something, but we'd like to invite people other than people on the executive to do something. So if there's something, a new piece of equipment you'd like to talk about, something you've done, some project you're working on, something you've learned, let us know and we'll put together, sooner rather than later. The night before is probably later. So give us a little bit of notice, let Randy know or let me know. Usually these are interesting sessions. And I think you've got something coming up, right? Chris has something coming up. So we've got a few things coming up, but that's something to keep in mind. And the astro imaging contest, the deadline's midnight December 1st. You submit your images to photos@stjohnsrsc.ca, and there's information about that on the website. Member benefits, we go through that every meeting, the newsletter and the bulletin. So I'm gonna get straight to observations. And despite the weather in the last month, there have been some. There were lots of pictures taken of the sun. So we're starting to see pictures from the C. There are now 2 C-Star S50s in the group. It should be S50, right? Not 50? S50. So this is picture that Randy did with his C-Star. Lovely sunspots. I did a shot the end of September with the Coronado and little eyepiece camera, and there are some prominences there and some sunspots and some texture. Another one. Oh, this is a video. So this is Randy's video with the C-Star S50. Certainly do. Well, it makes it look like it's real. So that's good.
They just had a new feature. Of time lapse for solar. Playing with that today. About 10 seconds. Keep moving the thing.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so Randy's commenting on the new time lapse feature, and it's still a bit jerky, but I'm sure we'll hear more about that. This one, Gary, not all the spots in there are sunspots, right?
Right.
But
Some of the dirt on it.
Amazing image of the texture and the filaments on the surface of the sun. So this was one from a couple weeks ago, and there was this prominence that had almost separated. So Cynthia and I were looking at it, and then I took a picture of it. Okay, so what's happening here is I'm just doing a video with this little camera, and the prominences are not as bright as the surface of the sun. So I have to do a very non-linear sort of stretch. So I pull up the brightness in the part of the histogram that corresponds to the prominences and pull it down in the center, and I end up with, sometimes I get a smoother interface and sometimes I just say, good enough. And this one, I was really trying to get that prominence floating away, so that's why there's kind of a sharp step there. That's a good question. What's that? Yeah. So here's Gary's C-Star, and Gary sent a couple pictures. This was the one that had the note that he'd used autofocus. So that's the one I put in. Nice, sharp, not as many sunspots. So how old was your C-Star when you did this one?
It was a week old.
A week old.
The day I got it, it was just raining.
Okay. Okay, so some other solar system objects. We had lots of shots of the moon. We're still getting submissions that are identified as smoky. Here's one from the Petals. Jim Stacy had a very artistic shot over Cape Spear. Thanks, Jim. Just lovely shot, and not easy to line that up. So I suspect there was a lot of thinking went into lining that up. Sue took a picture with her handheld, or was it on a tripod? Okay. Jupiter. Is it down there somewhere? I may have even, I hope I didn't crop it out, but oh, there is another shot coming, I think, that's got Jupiter in it. So, okay, here's the one that's got Jupiter in it. Okay, there it is. I was pretty sure I'd seen one of yours with Jupiter in as well. Yeah, so that's a different night. Yeah. So that's a really nice shot with the moon and Jupiter together. And then there's a series here from the petals, from Flat Rock and then from in around Long Pond. Beautiful shots. So this, I think, is, yeah, from Pippi Park. Lovely shots. I did some things with my Dobbs, looking at Saturn and Jupiter. I haven't stayed up late enough yet to get Jupiter up very high, but that's Io and Europa. And I got Venus early in the morning a couple weeks ago. And then Chris sent us some starscapes from when he was out in Gross Morn. Lovely shot of the Milky Way. This one's more of a test for the observers to pick out what's in there. But that's Deneb, I believe. And so Cygnus is here. And the rest of it is, I think, actually all around the edges. And
Yep. So that's an artifact, that line.
yeah, so the line there is an artifact. Deneb isn't actually moving that fast.
The green point in Gross more, and it is very, very dark. And this is the clearest night, the first night, within hours we were having a campsite. And I'm not sure you can see anything, but in the bottom left part of the photograph, you can see dark lanes going off of the Milky Way. And it's you need really dark skies to see it out of those.
Yep. Okay, and then again, like I did last month, I'm going to go through showing the deep sky objects starting from sort of high RA and going down to 0 hours. And so start at the Vale complex. And so there's Cygnus and the east and what used to be the east and west Vale, but now they call it the Filamentary Nebula, a supernova remnant down here. It's quite large, about 5 to 6 times the size of the moon. And so Jim sent us, I think this is a might be a composite. Is that right, Jim?
It's just a single image.
Oh, just single image. Okay. But catching the whole thing there, that's a lovely shot. The next one is the Dumbbell Nebula, which is down close to Sagitta, but again in the neighborhood of Cygnus. And it's a planetary nebula, so the white dwarf at the center is the core of a star that's, sun-like or up to 8 solar masses, and the outer layers, after it's gone through the red giant phase, are escaping. And so there's Jim Stacy's Dumbbell Nebula, and the technical stuff is here, and it's also on the talk chat line, so I'll just skip over that. And then M13, this Greg Baggs sent that one in. It's a globular cluster, thousands of stars that are bound together. They're mostly old, a few new ones resulting from collisions that they're called blue stragglers. And there it is. So that's a favorite object for all of us. So thanks, Greg. So the Pinwheel Galaxy is close to, well, above the handle of the Big Dipper. And we've been interested in it this year because of a supernova. And Bernard sent in a picture of M101 with the supernova. It was actually acquired not last month, but just submitted. And so very detailed picture. And there's the supernova right there, I believe, right? And just amazing. That's one star disappearing, or the end of one star, but that's basically energy being emitted by one star. And you compare it to all the other stuff that's going on in that galaxy. So that's a lovely shot, Bernard. Very dramatic. And then the Orion Nebula, this was actually Gary, I guess, had time on his hands and was trying out 2 different stacking programs using some old data. So the Orion Nebula is actually, here's the belt of Orion. So if you stay up really late, you can see it now, but it's more a winter sort of thing. So here is Gary's processing using astrosurface, which is new, I think, to almost all of us. Maybe it's just new, period. And Serial, which some people have already used. And there are some differences. Do you have a comment about what you concluded from your comparison?
Easier.
Okay, well, that's important. Okay.
It's pretty easy.
What would be telescope?
Oh, it was my 60mm. Me on your thing, there's only so many pictures I took.
The tracking was good.
Okay, so Gary is saying that astrosurface is easier. Serial gives you a bit more detail. And Robert has also tried astrosurface, but has had some trouble. Okay,
It does hit astrostacker and
Registax. Okay.
Your with Photoshop, so all one thing, and also the deep cut.
And is it fairly robust? Does it doesn't hang up or do any weird stuff?
No. It's only 2 you gotta use, and the detail, I've been doing stuff way back.
I may give that a try because I find auto stacker crashes my computer sometimes.
Is it's so old now that the has been upgraded that people with 11 are probably crashing all the time, while this one is up and new. And it's amazing how just 2 things and then detail pop out.
One quick comment on it, maybe about stacking program. Deep Sky Stacker, I had troubles with all that long hopefully. I often have the field full of somewhat fuzzy stars. The Deep Sky Stacker wants at least 25 or 30 stars before it'll align anything, and it rejects anything that's not pinpoint. So it's almost useless to me unless I manage to have a perfectly clear steady night.
Auto stacker takes 20, but you can click and say 3 stars, 4 stars.
I like that. I'm gonna have to try.
Okay, so we've had a review of astrosurface. Maybe at some point we could have a talk about astrosurface. But that's kind of what I was getting at. Okay, so the California Nebula is so here it is. Here's Perseus. So Auriga with Capella there, and Andromeda up here, and Perseus in between. The California Nebulas in here, and it's an emission nebula, and the gas is being excited by a very bright star, Menkib, which I think is right at this corner of Perseus here. And this is Bernard's image, and you can actually see, there it is, there's Menkib there. And so you can see, the sort of waves of gas being excited by the bright star. So that another very vivid image, Bernard, thank you. And then a lot of action around Cassiopeia. So I did an image of the Pac-Man Nebula just because which is NGC 281, because I'd never done that before. Robert did the Ghost of Cassiopeia. And forget who did the double cluster, but we'll find out in a minute. And Triangulum Galaxy. So they're all sort of in this region near Cassiopeia, lots of action there. And so, Jim did the double cluster, and you can see the colors. Yeah, you can see up there the nicely colored stars. I love the colors, the range of colors in here. That's one of the nice things about the double cluster. Jim Stacy did M33, the Triangulum Galaxy. Lots of detail in there. Use probably. Up there? Yeah, I'm not sure what that is.
That's the largest giant region, nebula. And there's another red blob at the bottom.
Yeah.
But that's the biggest red blob in it. Called nebula.
Yeah, cool. So they aren't actually in the galaxy, they're in the foreground, or they're in that galaxy? Okay.
You can talk.
Hi, Mike. That bright spot.
Okay,
bright spot.
okay, just a second, Jim. I'm gonna try and turn up the sound here. Yeah, just speak loudly and I'll pass it along, because
Okay, those
Go ahead.
The bright spots are hydrogen alpha regions, and the particular filter I was using in this particular time was sensitive to H alpha and sulfur. So those are NGC.
There's all kinds in there now.
yeah. So what Jim's saying is what more or less what Chris was saying. Those are H alpha. What are you trying to turn off? Okay, thanks, Jim. Yeah, so those are H alpha, and he was using a filter that was sensitive to H alpha, so that's good. There's Robert's Ghost of Cassiopeia. Yep. And that was my try at Pac-Man, and I think that was probably a night that wasn't very good because I only did about 21 minutes on it. We had a few nights like that, September and October. And then a couple contributions of the of M31, the Andromeda Galaxy, our closest galaxy neighbor, 2.5 million light years away, but 1.5 times the size of the Milky Way galaxy. And so there's Randy's picture with the sea star. So this was at the Geo Center during the Fall International Astronomy Night. Here's Jim Johnson's shot. There's 7 hours there and lots of detail and you can see lots of dust. And these two guys are what? 110, that's M32. And okay. Okay, and thank you. And that one is, okay, so these are both Jim Johnson. So this was the first one he posted was 7 hours. And then he used, let's see. So Jim, is this just more data or a different filter? I think it's just more data.
More data, and the second one was a mosaic. It was a 2-panel mosaic that I added into the first one. So
Yeah, so the total on this one is 15 hours and 30 minutes.
Yep.
And this is a 2-panel mosaic.
well, that's a 2-panel, but I added the data from the other image as well to it. So
Okay, so, but the other one was not 2-panel?
no, the other one was just a single shot.
Okay.
So this one, this
so that's-
2-panel gives you like a wider, it gives you the periphery, the star field and the
Okay.
periphery as well.
I see, yeah. So that's pretty impressive that you've done that and it's relatively seamless. Lovely. And that's the end of the observation reports. Do we have a sky this month up yet?
Okay. Seen these before, so there's our Nicthermian cycle for October 18th. Day night would be so much easier to say, wouldn't it? That's why I keep it there, right? Yeah, it's actually the correct term. Yeah. So 10 hours and 47 minutes of daylight now. So we're closing into the winter months for sure. And so you can see we can get out earlier in the evening for the darker skies, but it comes at the expense of our warmth. And here's the sun for Wednesday, October 18th. Sorry, I can't edit this, I don't think. That's the 15th because it's an image courtesy of Gary Diamond taken on the 15th. I thought it was close enough to tonight's meeting that, yeah, I'll take that one over Soho, isn't it? Yeah, so same image as what, Mike had up there before, but not in as much detail, of course, right? And moving on, the night of October the 18th, tonight, that's how much of the moon is present if you were to stay up late enough to see that. I don't think I've ever seen a sliver as small as that.
Oh, I took a picture of that tonight.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
And posted on the,
Okay. Okay, yeah. Pretty narrow, right? Yeah. Planet roundup, Mercury not visible, and Venus is merging into the morning sky as it approaches greatest elongation west. So that is visible for us. Mars will soon be behind the sun, so it's not visible. Jupiter currently visible in the evening sky as soon as it gets dark, pretty much. And by all means, get out and have a look at that while we're in the season for it. Saturn, similarly, is visible in the evening sky around 6:45. And when it says here accessible, it means that it's dark enough that you can discern it from the blue sky, I suppose, if you were so lucky as to have blue sky. Hey, and Saturn or Uranus in the evening sky becomes visible at about 9:22 when it reaches an altitude of 21 degrees above the horizon. Anything less than 21 degrees you know, you're not going to see it. So that's why it says 21-22, because it just so happens to crawl above the 20-degree mark in the sky, right high enough that it's possible to do in a telescope. And Neptune similarly, 7:30 when it's 21 degrees and highest at around 11 o'clock. And for more info, go to our website and click on these URLs. Comets, there's more than 3, but I usually pick anything that's not double digits, but or if it is double digits in the magnitude realm, it would be, of course, the brighter ones. They probably would appear as a point of light more likely than not in a large telescope. Asteroids, Vesta, and I don't know if I could pronounce that. Melpomene. There you go. Thank you very much, Chris. And when it's observable on what constellation? Supernova M101 still Sports 1 that is visible, and in NGC 1097 there's one that's a little fainter. That's possible to capture. And moving on. Yes, October 21, 22 will be our next passage of dust, a dust trail in the solar system, the Oranids. Swift streaks. So there you go. November, we got the South Taurids and North Taurids, then following that, and Leonids in later November. Geminids followed by the Ursids. Hope I got that name correctly pronounced. International Space Station passes, 3 that we can see there, 6th and 7th of November, and 8th and 9th of November. I guess the table got split up somewhere along the line. Telescopic and deep dark sky objects. These objects are pretty much optimally placed in the sky for the month of October and November. So if you want to take on a little challenge, there's one there. Having said that, there are 2 deep sky challenge objects, and I'm not sure what this one even is. Jones 1.
One object, 2 leads for it. If it's a PK, I think that's a planetary nebula.
Yeah, okay. So it's a planetary nebula,
I don't know.
and it would no doubt be very dim, very faint.
Yeah.
I would think so. Yeah. And for November, I see 59. That's probably a nebula as well of some type in Cassiopeia. Observing sessions, that's info about how we go about it and the do's and don'ts, I guess, and that can be read online. I'm not going to go through that here tonight with you. Our observing calendar for October shows where the last quarter and the new moon is, and we're sitting at around not far off of our new moon, just 4 days or so. So pretty good skies right about now. Now, what's not shown here is on the 20th, which would be the Beaconsfield event that we're going to have, or that we're hoping to have if the sky cooperates. And since it's not a public per se event, we didn't want to have it appear that way, you know, online, so we left it out. So 7 to 9. And I think everyone should have an email or go to the talk list and send me an email. I'll certainly forward you information about the location, but all you really need to do is to show up at the appointed time at Beaconsfield Junior High on Waterford Bridge Road. And International Fall Astronomy Day, which happens to reside on the same night as first quarter moon at the Geo Center, 7 to 10, if we are so lucky as to be able to get a break in the sky cover.
Actually, it's International Observing Moon Night. Last month was astronomy.
Oh, so this is a faux pas.
Oh, yeah, this is nationwide, international.
Okay, all right, so.
Just 2 days later, for you.
And I think that's about it. Well, there's a November calendar showing last quarter, new moon, meeting time, first quarter and full moon. And no doubt you hopefully will have some kind of session in November, so to be announced. And that's it for the Sky this month. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mike?
Yes,
I can send you something? Now,
go ahead.
Members Lantern Show, October 24th, 8:30. It's a Halloween one, exploring outer exoplanets. The movie is called Out There.
So what date was that?
October 24th at 8:30 p.m. Marine Institute. Send you this next Tuesday night.
Oh, coming right up, okay. Anyways, that's about it. Just a reminder, Robert already reminded us, International Observe the Moon Day on Sunday, Beaconsfield on Friday. Weather permitting, next meeting, members meeting, so I'd invite people to think about a short something they could say a few words about, and the astro imaging contest, and that wraps up what I've got. So thank you very much for coming, and be safe. And so thanks to the people online. Thanks for coming. I'm gonna end the meeting pretty soon, and but anybody want to say anything before I consign you to oblivion?